All right, so this plant here is called Celandine, or Celandine. People pronounce it different ways. Chelidonium majus. It's a plant from the poppy family, and it's relatively common in our area. You'll find it growing more in the city, especially in shady areas like this. It's something that Europeans often planted in their gardens, both as an ornamental and as a medicine. It's a beautiful plant, and it does sometimes escape into the wild, and you'll find patches of it growing in areas, usually in areas where there's old homesteads, old farms, or at some point in the past where somebody had planted it. Now this plant, I'm actually about to harvest it probably in the next few days, so it's a good time to talk about it. The way this plant grows is unusual. It kind of grows up and then it branches, and you'll see each of these branches here has some leaves and then some further branching and some flowers at the top. There's certain plants that grow that way, especially there's three very closely related families: the poppy family, the barberry family, and the buttercup family. And you'll see this type of growth with some of the things like the various Actia species, like black cohosh and the baneberries. Also blue cohosh grows like this as well. And they're all plants from those three families that particularly grow in woodland areas. And they often have this kind of way of growing. Anyway, so it's another one that, unlike a lot of plants where we would just harvest them as soon as they start to flower, it's another one that continues to get taller and taller and continue to branch in this way. So it branches there, and then another stalk comes up, and another stalk, and another stalk, and the plant gets larger as it's going along, and it will be easier to harvest it in quantity. So because it has this capacity to continue flowering for weeks on end. So it's another one that we don't usually harvest when it first starts flowering. I want to wait till it gets at least 2 feet high. Sometimes growing in the woods, it'll even grow taller than that, up 3, sometimes even 4 feet high. And that way I don't have to harvest from as many plants. The portion that we're harvesting from each plant is larger. But typically the way we harvest it, we don't want to stress the plant out too much. All these branchings are coming from the same plant. So what I'll do is I will harvest just one of these branchings. Usually the stalk comes up straight, and right where it branches the first time is where I'll cut it. And you take that entire portion. With some of the older plants, it branches a lot more. But even though it might put up, an older plant might have put up 2 or 3 of these stalks, I only harvest one from each plant so as not to stress the plant out too much. Now, with this one, the stalks are very succulent, and they contain a lot of latex, and a lot of the potency in the plant is in that latex. So you really don't, theoretically, you don't have to remove any of the stalk at all. But I'll usually, as you can see here, there'll be one sort of thicker portion from where I cut it. There's a thicker portion there, and there's a long piece of stalk here. I might remove half of that and all of that, but that's about it. So I'm typically only removing about 10 or 15% of the thickest stalk. Sorry, distracted by the turkey vulture that cast a shadow on the Celandine. Anyway, so typically the time we harvest it, it usually goes into flower in early May, but the time we usually harvest it is late May, after the plant's had an opportunity to grow a little bit more. And the first thing I'll say about it is, like a lot of plants, this plant has a latex that's in the stalk, and the latex on this plant is yellow. Now, one of the interesting things about latexy plants, that includes dandelion and things like milkweed, celandine, bloodroot, is that the latexes are very, very potent. And one of the things there's a tradition of using plant latexes for is for treating warts. Dandelion, if you break the stalk of the flowers, the flowering stalk, that kind of rubbery stalk, the latex will ooze out. And if you put it on a wart, and you got to do that diligently, a couple times a day for a few weeks, what will often happen is the wart will just turn black, like, and become scab-like, and then fall off. Celandine, milkweed, is another one that does that, and it also has a white latex like dandelion, and it's a little bit stronger and more effective than dandelion. But the yellow latex in celandine is even more effective. And if all you have to do is break off a tiny bit of leaf and a little bit, and you'll see at the end of that, a little bit of that yellow latex come off, and you just dab it on the wart. And it's even more effective than dandelion and milkweed. But it's not a large plant, so you can't do tons of it, But you could take a leaf off of one plant and a leaf off another plant. You don't want to be overstressing the plants. And the thing about celandine is it's available all year round, because even in the wintertime it maintains a rosette of leaves that you can find in the winter as well. What to talk about? Now, first of all, this is a type of plant that I call a potentizer. What that means is that it contains constituents that are stronger than your average plant. As an herbalist, we usually work with the mildest plants the most, because they are the most tonic. But sometimes you got to go deeper, or you need something that needs to be a little bit stronger. And then we go to the potentizers. And the potentizers I classify in three groups: the medium potency potentizers, high potency potentizers, and very high potency potentizers. The thing to remember is that the more potent the plant, the greater the potential toxicity, and the less it becomes herb-like, and the more it becomes drug-like. So we never use the very high potency potentizers. They're just too toxic. You're talking about things like poison hemlock, for instance, or other things like digitalis, which are prescription drugs anyway, and herbalists aren't allowed to use. We use the medium potency potentizers the most, and rarely the high potency potentizers. In the poppy family, the high potency potentizer is bloodroot, and it also grows in similar woodland areas, but that one is native. This one comes from Europe. But this one is relatively safe to use, but you just have to be aware that because of its higher potency and greater potential for toxicity, it's something you don't use as often and you don't use as long. Typically with your typical medium potency potentizing plant, you don't want to use it higher than 20 to 25% of a formula, and usually not for more than 2, 3, maybe 4 months at a time. And now this one has a long history of being used for liver and gallbladder conditions, and it is amazing when you've got to go deeper with liver and gallbladder conditions, especially for really serious things like hepatitis. It's also one of our medium potency herbs for treating cancer, and it's very effective for many, many different types of cancers. But of course, treating cancer is a tricky thing, and it's not something you generally do unless you're very, very experienced working with these herbs. But anyway, it does have a long history of being used for cancer. It's good for general digestive conditions. It's calming to the nervous system. A lot of those plants from the poppy family have sedating compounds in their latex, but it doesn't contain opioids. But it does have other sedating compounds in its latex, and it's a very powerful detoxifying herb. So again, with the herbs that are detoxifying, there are things that are being used to treat chronic inflammatory conditions, such as skin conditions like eczema, acne, psoriasis, or arthritis, other types of chronic inflammatory conditions. So generally speaking, with the potentizing herbs, you usually only use them. They may have many properties like other herbs, but we usually only use them for the things they potentize. So what this plant is most used for is either when you've got to go much deeper with somebody that has a long-standing chronic inflammatory condition. Later in the treatment, when you want to go deeper, you might introduce a medium potency herb like Celandine. Also for deep action on the liver and gallbladder, and for a number of different types of cancer. It's also, because of its potential toxicity, it's not that toxic, but it is more potent and has some degree of toxicity associated with it. A typical for plants like that, we don't give it to pregnant or nursing women. We don't give it to infants. And we have those dosage and duration restrictions that I mentioned earlier.